Discover the incredible love story that changed lives forever. 2 heartwarming secrets revealed. In the heart of a small Midwestern town, the sun spilled golden rays over the diner, where the clinking of plates and the vibrant laughter of children danced together like a melody. Emma, a single mother of 10-year-old Jake, stood behind the counter, pouring coffee for regulars who greeted her with warmth. The tough lines on her face blurred through the laughter, echoing the countless sacrifices she made just to keep them afloat. Each day felt like a battle, but in the midst of it all, she wore a smile that could light up the darkest corners of judgment. That Emma's paycheck from the diner offered little, just enough to scrape by, but she'd carry the weight of her struggles with pride, no matter the whispers that floated through the town. "Did you hear about Emma?" was often followed by hushed tones sharing opinions on her life. But she pushed through, fueled by love for Jake. The world seemed cold, yet she held on to dreams of possibilities that felt just beyond her reach, teasing her like the shimmering stars overhead after dark. One fateful afternoon, at the community center immersed in hopeful chatter and laughter, Emma's life took an unexpected turn. There, amidst the vibrant colors of painted walls that supported families in need, she met Mark. A war veteran returned to his small-town roots with shadows in his eyes. He listened to her story, and she listened to his. Their words intertwined, sparking a bond over shared challenges and unspoken truths. He bore scars that matched her invisible ones, both longing for connection yet cautious of vulnerability. As they spoke, Emma felt her heart pull closer to him, a warm ache growing as hopes ignited. But then came the hesitation. Fear weighed heavy on her chest. Could Jake accept another man in their lives? What would the town say? Her heart raced with the idea of expanding their little world, but faltered at the thought of judgment. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The sparks between Emma and Mark ignited the air. But soon, suffocating whispers began creeping into their lives. The judgment intensified like a storm ready to crash. Jake, unaware of the whispering turmoil, loved the new friendship while the air around them thickened with scrutiny. His laughter at school, once carefree, turned into silence as he became the target of bullying. The playful echoes of childhood morphed into whispered echoes of shame. Then came Mark's quiet confession one evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he revealed the weight he carried. Similar to hers, a letter from his late father urging him to embrace love despite fear. It struck Emma, and tears pooled in her eyes, realizing their struggles mirrored each other in profound ways. As they leaned closer, threading their hopes with trust, Jake's hurtful words echoed in the background, leaving Emma torn. Could love rise above the judgments they faced? As the weight of societal expectations pressed down on Emma's chest, uncertainty washed over her. With so much at stake, did they have what it takes to weave their lives together? Or would their dreams dissolve in the unforgiving winds of a gossiping town? The future hung by a thread, and the next turn in their story remained tantalizingly out of reach, waiting to unfold. Emma woke up the next morning with a sense of heaviness weighing on her heart. The sun peeked through the window, trying to break the spell of worry that wrapped around her like a thick fog. She glanced at Jake, still lost in his dreams, the innocent curve of his lips a reminder of what she was fighting for. The diner was busy that day. The familiar scent of coffee and pancakes saturated the air, but it felt different. The laughter and chatter around her sounded distant, like echoes of another world where problems slipped away. All she could think about was Jake and the boys' cruel whispers at school. She wiped down the counter, but her mind drifted to Mark, wondering if she was ready to let a new man into their lives. During her break, she sat outside on the diner's rickety porch, sipping lukewarm coffee. Her thoughts turned to Mark. What would their lives look like if she let him in? A warm flutter filled her chest at the idea. Yet the weight of uncertainty kept it grounded. That evening, Jake came home with a frown etched on his face. He tossed his backpack on the floor with a poof of dust and plopped down on the couch. Emma's heart sank. She had seen that look too many times lately. "Hi, buddy. How was school?" "Fine." But it wasn't he fine. Emma could tell. As she sat next to him, she gently nudged, "You can tell me anything. You know you can." Jake shifted his gaze, avoiding her eyes. "It's just some kids said stuff. They called me names because you're friends with Mark." Hot anger surged through Emma, but she forced herself to soften. What was happening wasn't just about her and Mark. It was about Jake too. "I'm sorry to hear that, sweetheart. Those kids don't understand our friendship. Something special. But why can't they see it?" His little voice cracked, betraying the hurt he carried inside. "They just make fun of me. It's not fair." Emma wrapped her arms around him, pulling him close. "People can be mean when they don't know the whole story." She took in a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "What matters most is that we trust each other and we're okay." Jake looked up, his brow still creased, and the way he searched her face made her heart ache. "But what if Mark hurts us?" The question hung in the air. "Honey, Mark is a good man. He understands so much about life. Just like your mom, he has had to face hard things. We can't let what other people say change what we feel." They held a moment of silence, connected by a shared understanding of vulnerability. Emma felt a flicker of hope, and she made a decision then. She wouldn't let fear dictate their happiness or their future. That night, she found herself texting Mark, asking if he could meet her after the diner closed. She needed to talk, not just for her but for Jake. She hoped for a connection that could stand tall amidst the storm that surrounded them. Meanwhile, Mark leaned against his truck, looking out at the stars. The letter from his father burned in his pocket. He'd been wrestling with his feelings about Emma, hesitant to put more on her plate. But as he checked his phone and saw her message, a flicker of determination coursed through him. Perhaps it was time to risk the vulnerability of his heart again. As he drove into town, he couldn't shake the thought of what could be. This felt different. What awaited them was uncertain. But in that moment, they both knew they had to be brave. Little did they know, the night would bring challenges that would test the very foundations of their growing bond and reshape their lives. Could they navigate the storm together? Or would the weight of the world push them apart? Emma stood in the dim light of the diner, the clatter of dishes and voices fading into the background as she waited for Mark. Her heart raced, filled with equal parts excitement and dread. The door swung open, and he stepped in, shaking off the chill of the night. His eyes found hers instantly, sparking a warmth she hadn't realized she craved. "Hey Emma," he said, his voice low and steady. He approached, and Emma could see the hint of concern etched on his face. "Thanks for coming," she replied, leading him to a quiet booth in the far corner. The vibrant chatter of patrons faded as they settled into the intimacy of the moment. As they sat together, Emma felt the weight of her words hanging in the air. "I wanted to talk about us and Jake." She took a breath and dove in. "Jake has been having a tough time lately. The kids at school, they say hurtful things because of our friendship. But I don't want him to feel alone in this." Mark listened intently, his brows furrowing as she spoke. "What do you want from me?" His question was straightforward, cutting through the tension. "I need you to understand. It's not just about us. It's about making sure Jake feels safe and supported." Emma hesitated, her voice softening. "I don't want him to think that loving someone means you have to hide or be ashamed." Mark reached across the table, his hand resting over hers. "I'd never want to hurt him. Or you," he said, his sincerity evident. "But you know I'm still figuring things out too. My past is complex. Everyone has a past, Mark. I'm learning to accept mine," Emma replied, a flicker of hope igniting inside her. "You've shared so much about what you've been through. I just need to know if you're willing to try. For us." He looked down, contemplating her words. "It's just that I don't want to bring any baggage into your lives. You and Jake deserve peace. But we could create that together," she urged, feeling the heat of conviction rise in her chest. "I've seen the way Jake lights up when you're around. He needs a man who can show him what trust looks like." With every moment that passed, Emma sensed a shift in Mark. His expression softened as he gazed into her eyes. "I think about you both more than I want to admit," he said finally. A silence settled, thick with possibilities. Emma's heart swelled, realizing that for the first time, they were sharing their vulnerabilities, their fears. This was a step toward something deeper, something that could knit their lives together. Just then, the diner door swung open again, and a group of rowdy teenagers burst in, laughter and shouts echoing through the space. Emma's stomach sank as she recognized a few of them, the same ones who had tormented Jake at school. She instinctively tightened her grip on Mark's hand. "Let us get out of here," he whispered, catching her worry. They moved toward the exit, but the teens spotted them, their voices rising in a taunt. Emma felt her cheeks heat as the whispers reached her ears. "Look, it's the diner mom and her boyfriend." She stood frozen for a moment, fear flooding her senses. But then she glanced at Mark, who was unflinchingly returning their gaze. He squeezed her hand, a silent promise that they would face this together as they stepped outside. The cold air hit her face, sharpening her focus. The night was darker than before, but Emma felt a flicker of defiance igniting within her. Moments like this would come, and they would weather them together. She was sure of that now. "Tomorrow," Mark said, looking at her with determined eyes. "I'll go to school with you and Jake. I want to show him he doesn't have to face things alone." Emma's heart soared at his words, a wave of gratitude washing over her. But as they made their way back to the truck, the troubling words of the teens rang in Emma's ears. Would the stares and whispers be enough to break their growing connection before it could flourish? The uncertainty lingered like a cloud as they drove away. But in Emma's heart, hope and fear tangled together, setting the stage for a battle for love and acceptance. Would they have the strength to navigate the challenges ahead? The sun rose timidly the next morning, casting a soft glow over Emma's small town. As she drove Jake to school, silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. She glanced sideways at her son, his shoulders slumped, a stark contrast to his usual exuberant spirit. Her heart ached for him. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked gently. Jake shrugged. "Just tired, I guess." He focused intently on the passing scenery, avoiding her gaze. Emma wished she could take away his pain, peel away the layers of hurt. She longed to make him feel whole again. Pulling into the school parking lot, Emma felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. Today was going to be crucial. Mark was waiting at the entrance, his presence a beacon in the early morning light. As Jake got out, she caught his eye. There was reassurance in his expression that made her feel a little braver. "Hey buddy," Mark said, crouching down to Jake's level. "I'm here to stand by you today." Jake hesitated, then nodded, glancing at Emma, who offered an encouraging smile. She wanted to remind him that it was okay to lean on others, to accept help. As they entered the school, the hallway buzzed with the usual chaos. Teenagers laughing, lockers slamming, friends reuniting. But Emma's gaze was locked on the other group. There they were, the same kids who had tormented Jake. Their laughter cut through the air, biting with cruel intent. "Look who it is. The freak and his mom," one of them shouted, their tone dripping with disdain. At those words her heart plummeted. She looked at Jake, who had gone paler than before. Mark stepped in front of him, his back defiantly turned to the taunts. "Enough," Mark said firmly, his voice steady. "This isn't okay." Emma felt a surge of gratitude toward Mark. He stood tall, shielding Jake, and for a moment she noticed how brave he was. Jake's eyes widened, surprise and hope flickering across his face as he processed Mark's defense. The taunts faded for a moment, confusion replacing their laughter. "Do you have a problem with Jake?" Mark continued. "Because bullying isn't something you get to hide behind. It's weak and it's pathetic." With a sharp intake of breath, Emma realized how rare it was for an adult to stand up for a kid like Jake in this way. It lit something inside her, a fire of admiration and respect. Who even cares if he likes some weird stuff? Another kid chimed in, rolling their eyes. "Get a grip." "Enough," Jake suddenly shouted, surprising Emma. It was a command, powerful but shaky. "I'm not ashamed of who I am. You should be ashamed for treating people this way." Silence followed, thick and tense. It was a moment of reckoning. Emma's heart raced. Had Jake just claimed his space in the world? The whisper surrounding him faded, but the look of shock on many faces lingered. Mark glanced at Jake, pride evident in his eyes. Emma was filled with warmth as she witnessed her son step up, his courage shining brighter than the painful words thrown at him as classes began. Emma felt a surge of hope. Maybe they would be okay. Maybe they were stronger together than she ever anticipated. Later that day, Emma received a phone call that rattled her optimism. The principal wanted to discuss Jake's outburst and the issues of bullying. A lump formed in her throat. Would they take this seriously? Would Jake feel the weight of judgment in their meeting? She glanced at Mark, whose supportive presence had become a lifeline in that moment. Do you think she began, her voice trembling? Mark took her hand, grounding her. We'll get through this. But whatever happens, know that you and Jake are not alone. We'll make sure of that. Tugged between fear and determination, Emma felt the gravity of their growing bond. As she looked down the hall at the classroom where Jake would wait for her, a question loomed ominously in her mind. Would standing strong together lift them higher or cause them to fall harder? Just as they headed toward the office, Emma's heart raced anew. What happened next could change everything. What would the principal say? Emma's heart thudded in her chest as they approached the principal's office. The hallway felt endless, each footstep echoing her escalating anxiety. Mark walked beside her, his presence a steady force amidst the looming uncertainty. She glanced at him, searching for reassurance, and found him looking ahead with a determined expression. As they reached the door, Emma hesitated. What if they don't understand? What if they punish him for standing up for himself? Her voice trembled, uncertainty spilling out. Mark squeezed her hand, his grip warm and firm. We'll advocate for him just like he did for himself today. He's not alone in this. His confidence was infectious, nudging Emma toward hope, even as worry nestled deep in her heart. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. The principal, Miss Carter, sat behind a desk cluttered with papers. She looked up, her glasses perched on the bridge of her nose, and smiled. The air felt tense as Emma and Jake stepped inside. Jake, Miss Carter began, her tone gentle. I've heard some interesting things about your outburst this morning. Why don't you tell me what happened? Jake shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to Emma for a moment before he found his voice. I stood up for myself. I'm not going to let them bully me anymore. Each word seemed to lift a bit of weight off his shoulders. Emma's chest swelled with pride hearing her son assert himself. But as Miss Carter leaned forward, her expression serious, doubt crept back in. Standing up for oneself is important, Jake. But it's also essential to understand the consequences of our actions. Jake's brows knitted tightly. But if I don't say anything, they'll just keep hurting me. Isn't that worse? Emma held her breath, waiting for Miss Carter's response. This was a delicate moment, one that could shape everything for Jake. The principal paused, and then her expression softened. You're right, Jake. But I need to ensure that we approach these situations constructively, where everyone learns and grows from it. It's about making the school a safer place. Not just for you but for everyone. Emma could see the wheels turning in Jake's mind. All the struggles he had faced flashed across her thoughts, the late nights of quiet tears, the way he clutched his pillow in fear. Mark, Miss Carter said, turning her attention to him, what are your thoughts on how we can proceed? Mark stood taller, the fire in his eyes flickering with purpose. I think the school needs to take a strong stance against bullying, provide the resources for the students who need support, and most importantly, create an environment where kids like Jake feel respected and safe. Emma felt hope rising, the very foundation of their resolve knitting them closer to us. Carter nodded thoughtfully. That's a good starting point. I want to support Jake through this, and if we work together, we can make a difference. Emma's heart fluttered with gratitude. It was a step in the right direction, a glimmer of light in what had been an encroaching darkness. However, as they left the office, Jake remained silent, his expression troubled. Emma worried he might still carry the weight of others' perceptions. Jake? Are you okay? She asked gently, his shoulders sagged a bit. I guess. But what if I still get bullied? What if this doesn't change anything? Mark knelt beside him, eyes sincere. Change takes time, buddy. But you've already made a big step today by speaking up. And you won't be alone. We will always have your back. A small smile broke through Jake's tension, but his uncertainty still lingered like a shadow. As they walked back toward the classroom, Emma felt the flickering of hope. Each step forward held promise, but there was still doubt whispering in the back of her mind. What would Jake say when faced with the fallout of his courage? Would the bullies back off, or would things become worse? Emma's heart raced with the possibilities as they entered the chaotic buzz of the school day once again. In the distance, a familiar laughter echoed, and her heart sank. How would Jake handle it when he confronted them again? The moment of truth was still ahead. As they stepped back into the bustling hallways, the noise enveloped them, laughter, whispers, shuffling feet. The chaos felt overwhelming, almost tangible. Emma swallowed hard, glancing around, and her heart sank deeper. She caught sight of a group gathered near the lockers, their laughter sharp and pointed. They were the same kids who made Jake's life so hard. "Stay close," she whispered to Jake, pulling him gently toward her side. Mark walked slightly ahead, his presence a shield between Jake and the world that had, up until now, seemed indifferent to her son's pain. Jake's eyes flitted nervously toward the group, his earlier bravado waning under their scrutiny. Emma could sense the fear creeping back into him. She wished she could take it away, to shield him from every hurtful word and dismissive glance. "Hey you guys!" A voice called from the group, mischievous and louder than the rest. It was Jamie, the ringleader of the bullies. "Look who decided to come back. The big brave Jake." Their laughter rang out, sharp as daggers, and Emma felt her stomach churn at the mockery. Jake's shoulders slumped, but he squared them back, drawing in a shaky breath. "I won't let them get to you," she whispered to him, her own resolve clashing with the uncertainty swirling inside her. They walked past the gaggle of kids, feeling their gazes bore into Jake. "Nice shirt, Jake. Did your mom pick it out?" Another kid sneered, and the laughter rose again. Emma's heart ached with every taunt aimed at her son. She could feel rage bubbling up, but she knew this wasn't the moment for confrontation. "Let it go, Jake," she urged quietly, sensing his hesitation. "You've done enough today." They finally turned a corner, the crowd fading from view, but the weight of those words lingered in the air. Jake's face was set, a mix of annoyance and sadness flickering in his eyes. "Why do they keep picking on me?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper, tinged with the pain of confusion. "Because they're scared," Mark chimed in, walking back toward them. "People pick on those who show a different strength, they don't understand it. But you've begun to show your strength, and that scares them more than anything else." Jake looked up, processing those words. There was a small glimmer of understanding in his gaze, but it was quickly overshadowed by the remnants of doubt. As they approached Jake's classroom, Emma felt the urgency building. The day ahead was still full of potential, both good and bad. What if the next class made it worse? What if Jake found himself trapped again in the same hurtful cycles? Sitting in class, the tension weighed heavily. Kid by kid, the voices were noise, blurring into a constant hum. But it was the way they turned and whispered that spiraled into anxiety for Jake. Emma felt the breath catch in her throat. The longing to intervene clawed at her. When the bell rang, it was loud and jarring. The students jumped to their feet, eager to escape. Emma caught a glimpse of Jake standing there, eyes glued to the floor as others jostled past him. "Jake," she called, trying to anchor him with her voice. He looked up, but the fight in his eyes was fading. "Let us grab lunch together." "Just you and me," Mark suggested, pulling his phone from his pocket. "How about we get some pizza?" "Yummy," Jake murmured, a hint of excitement creeping into his voice. But Emma could see the hesitation lingering still. Would this moment be enough? Would it shield him from the coming storm? As they walked toward the cafeteria, a new wave of laughter hit them this time. Jake recognized the voices. The bullies had found their lunch table. Emma felt her stomach drop once more. "Stay strong, buddy," Mark said, looking down at Jake. But that reassurance felt like a fragile thread amidst the growling tension. Emma's heart raced. How would Jake navigate the next confrontation? What strength resided in him that had yet to be unveiled? The reality of the next moment loomed ahead, cracking under the weight of vulnerability and silence. The cafeteria buzzed with energy, the sound a chaotic mix of clattering trays, shouting voices, and laughter. The aroma of pizza lingered, but it was a far cry from the warmth that Emma wanted Jake to feel. She watched as they approached the lunch line, her heart tightening at the sight of familiar faces. The bullies hadn't just found their table. They claimed it like a throne. "Just focus on us, Jake. Let us enjoy lunch," Emma said, trying to infuse positivity into the air. Mark stepped ahead, joking about toppings, but Jake's gaze was locked onto Jamie and his crew, their laughter ricocheting off the walls and tugging at the fragile thread of Jake's assurance as they stood in line. Jake's hands fidgeted anxiously at his side, shoulders curling inward. Emma reached over, resting her hand lightly on his back. "Remember what I said. You are strong," she murmured, careful to keep her voice steady. He nodded, though the fear in his eyes cracked her heart. "Look who it is." Jamie's voice boomed through the noise again. slicing into Emma's brief moment of hope. "Jake, do you want a slice of shame with that pizza?" The other kids erupted in laughter, the sound harsh and mocking. Jake's face reddened, and Emma felt every ounce of his embarrassment as if it were coming in waves that threatened to pull her under. "Hey, leave him alone," Mark said, shifting into a protective stance, but Emma could feel the tension rising. "Why don't you get lost?" Jamie shot back, his laughter turning venomous. "Or are you hoping to steal some of our thunder?" Emma decided now wasn't the time for defiance. "Let us find a table, Jake," she said quickly, guiding him away. She could feel him hesitate, the pull of those bullies still strong, but he took a step forward, silent. They found a table in the far corner, away from the chaos. It was quieter there and Jake began to visibly relax, but Emma could still see shadows lurking behind his eyes. "I wish I could just make them understand," he started, but Emma interrupted. "Jake," she said gently, "sometimes people are cruel out of fear or misunderstanding. But you know what? You have something special in you that they don't. And that makes you stronger, even if it doesn't feel like it right now." Mark chimed in, adding his voice to the conversation. "You've got a fire inside. Don't ever let them dim that light." A moment of quiet settled between them, the bond of shared words laced with understanding. Jake picked at his pizza, the cheese stretching as he pulled it apart. "Do you really think I'm strong?" he asked, vulnerability cracking through his earlier bravado. Emma's heart surged with warmth. "Not just strong. You are brave. You stood up today. You faced them, and that matters more than you know." She smiled, hoping to bring light to the dimness surrounding him as Jake glanced up with a shy smile. Emma felt a shift. Perhaps he was beginning to understand. And at that moment, she held on to the hope that Jake wasn't just going to survive this year. He might actually thrive. But the moment was fragmented when a loud crash erupted behind them. Chairs scraped against the floor, laughter turned chaotic, and Jake's expression shifted once more, eyes darting back to the bullies. They had spilled a drink on another kid, creating a ripple of excitement and laughter across the cafeteria. Jake whispered, anxiety creeping back in as he shrunk in his seat. "Stay with me, honey. Just watch," she whispered back, her own heart thudding with fear of what might unfold. But in that split second, she realized they weren't just watching. They were part of a balance that could change everything. Would Jake find the courage to speak out when the stakes were raised again? Would his story take a turn toward safety, or would he be swept back into the chaos? The chaos grew louder, drowning out Emma's steady voice. The cafeteria had transformed into a circus of uproar, boisterous laughter blending with the clashing clatter of chairs, while Jake's anxiousness swelled like a balloon on the verge of bursting. Emma's heart raced with the weight of helplessness. She wished she could shield him from every cruel word, every taunt. "Why do they have to be like that?" Jake murmured, barely audible over the din. His voice trembled, and Emma felt the urge to wrap him in her arms, to shield him from it all. Instead, she offered unwavering eye contact, a lifeline in the tumult. "They are just trying to feel powerful, Jake. Don't let them succeed," she replied, keeping her words soft but firm. Mark looked from Emma to Jake, nodding in agreement, though the worry etched on his face made Emma's stomach knot tighter. Just then, one of the bullies, a tall kid named Ryan, noticed the trio huddled away from the action. He turned toward them, a sneer plastered across his face. "What's wrong, Jake? Afraid to join the fun? Or is it that you just can't take a joke?" The laughter from Ryan's friends echoed menacingly. Emma's heart sunk as she caught a glimpse of Jake's retreating demeanor. It was as if he was shrinking under their gaze, the weight of the words pressing heavily upon him. "Hey, leave him alone." Mark shot back, a fierce protectiveness igniting his spirit. Jake glanced at Mark, eyes wide, desperate for support but hesitant to engage further. Emma knew that words sometimes fell flat, so she took a deep breath and stood. "Hey, that's enough," she called out, her voice surprisingly steady amidst the chaos. It was her moment, their moment to confront the darkness. The cafeteria fell quiet, the laughter halting abruptly like someone had pressed pause on a chaotic movie. Kids turned to look, curiosity mixed with surprise. Emma felt all eyes on her, the weight of their judgment resting on her shoulders. "It's not funny to hurt others," she continued, her heart pounding like a drum. "You're just making yourself smaller." Jamie exchanged glances with Ryan and the others, taken aback by Emma's sudden defiance. For a moment Emma saw something flicker in Jake's eyes. Hope? Fear? It was hard to tell. He was still sitting there, tense but now a little taller, braver in the face of the unfolding battle. Ryan scoffed a laugh, but it lacked conviction. Whatever, Emma. You think you're a hero? You think that's going to help him? But it's a start, she responded fiercely, her resolve bolstering her. You want to be known as a bully? Or as someone who lifts others up? Silence prolonged, the atmosphere shifting from drumming laughter to a hesitant curiosity. Jake blinked, uncertainty easing as he slowly straightened in his seat. Emma could feel the collective breath of the cafeteria, the tension tangible, yet hanging like a suspenseful pause. Then, unexpectedly, another voice rose among the crowd, a softer one. Maybe they're right, you know? Everyone needs to stand together. It was Sarah, another student who usually kept to herself. The ripple of her words threaded through the room, creating a flicker of solidarity, and suddenly, it felt like the tide was turning. Yeah, maybe we should all just be nice, piped in Mike, a shy boy from their art class, garnering murmurs of agreement. Jake watched, astonishment coloring his features. Are they really standing up for me? He whispered while flames of something unexpected started to build in his chest. Hope, perhaps. Emma's heart fluttered as she exchanged glances with Mark, astonished pride swelling within her. Were they witnessing a transformation? But before any more could be said or done, the supervision of a teacher emerged on the scene, cutting through tension with a reality check that would change everything. What's going on here? She asked, her gaze sharp. Emma turned their attention back to the teacher, realizing that perhaps the moment of truth was only beginning. Would they manage to rise as a collective front against those who bullied? Or was this merely the calm before another storm? Whatever happens next, Jake, Emma spoke gently as the teacher looked ready to interject. Know that we're here for you. That's what matters. And as Emma's resolve strengthened, she knew that they were no longer just surviving the lunch hour. They were beginning to fight for something greater than themselves. What would happen when the bell rang and they stepped back into the world outside these walls? The tension hung in the air like a thick fog, and time felt as if it had slowed to a crawl. Emma held her breath, her heart racing as she awaited the teacher's response. Would she support the uprising, or dismiss it as mere childish squabbling? The cafeteria was a cauldron of mixed emotions, and Emma could feel every pair of eyes glued to her, waiting for anything to happen. Miss Thompson, they're making fun of Jake, Emma explained, her voice steady yet pleading. She glanced at Jake, his face pale, a blend of fear and hope etched across his features. We were just trying to stand up for him. The teacher surveyed the room, a leader's pose as she took in the collective distress. Bullying is not tolerated in this school, she said firmly, her eyes skimming the faces of the bullies with a mix of disappointment and resolve. I'll need to speak with all involved after lunch today. Ryan opened his mouth to protest, but the steely gaze of Miss Thompson hushed him up instantly. Emma felt a small spark of victory ignite within her. Maybe, just maybe, they were turning the tide against the intimidation that had haunted Jake. As the teacher turned her back to usher the students back to their tables, the chatter roared back to life. But now whispers circulated about Jake, not the ridicule that usually echoed around him, but murmurs of support. Emma caught snippets of conversations. Did you see Emma stand up? And I can't believe Sarah spoke up too. Jake's hesitant smile crept onto his face, a slow bloom of warmth that spread through Emma. It was a small victory, yet it felt monumental. They weren't just fighting for Jake. They were creating a movement. Mark leaned over, nudging Jake lightly. See, you have more friends than you think. Jake looked up, his eyes shimmering like sunlight breaking through clouds. I didn't think anyone would care. Emma reached out, squeezing his hand. Of course we care. You're not alone anymore. Lunch continued, but the energy felt different. The cafeteria began to shift. In the midst of chaos, a pact of solidarity formed. Kids turned to each other and shared lingering glances. They all seemed to understand now. Kindness was more powerful than cruelty. As the bell rang to signal the end of lunch, a sense of nervous anticipation filled the air. Emma, Jake and Mark walked down the bustling hallway together, the newfound weight of their unity palpable. What do you think will happen? Jake asked, his voice shaky but filled with an underlying strength. Emma shared a glance with Mark, then smiled at Jake. Whatever happens, we face it together. Together, Jake echoed, a newfound determination sparkling in his eyes. Yet, as they reached their next class, Emma felt unease grip her stomach. Would they be able to stand against the resistance that would surely follow? What if Ryan and his gang wouldn't take this challenge lightly? As they entered the classroom, Emma caught sight of Ryan lurking by the door, a dark cloud of disbelief hovering over him. The tension in the air thickened again. This was far from over. Don't waver, Jake. Whatever comes next, stick together, Emma whispered, her heart pounding hard against her ribs. With the first class of the afternoon looming ahead, a new wave of uncertainty washed over her. How would they navigate this new reality, knowing the storm was only beginning? Would courage hold when faced with the backlash? And as her mind raced, Emma couldn't help but wonder. Could this moment of bravery truly change everything for Jake and for themselves? In the days that followed, the air shifted in a way Emma had longed for but feared to believe. After that pivotal lunch where voices rose in support, her small family found themselves enveloped in a new world, filled with hope and determination. At school, little by little Jake began to stand taller. He carried the whispers of encouragement like a shield, a protective barrier around his heart. Mark became a steady anchor, often walking Jake to class and offering his unwavering support. Emma watched from the sidelines, a watchful mom proud of her son's newfound bravery. The weight they all carried felt a little lighter, dripping away like the rain from a storm cloud finally shedding its burden. One afternoon, as school let out and the golden light spilled over the horizon, Jake asked Mark if he would come over for dinner. The simple gesture surprised Emma. Really? You mean it? She asked, astonishment coloring her voice. Jake shot her a shy smile, the kind of smile that spoke volumes, illuminating the struggles of the past. Yes, he said. I want him to be part of our family. Mark's face lit up, and Emma felt that familiar warmth swell within. They shared a meal that evening, laughter spilling from their table like confetti, scattering all traces of doubt. Mark's stories, enriched by experience and heart, resonated with Jake. They spoke about comic books, video games, and dreams of the future, weaving their threads of friendship into an unbreakable bond. Emma couldn't help but notice the joy radiating from Jake, his laughter blossoming like flowers in spring. The following weeks embraced them in a gentle embrace, but challenges too loomed on the horizon. The whispers from the past lingered, and Jamie and Ryan didn't disappear just because they chose to turn over a new leaf. One day, as Jake was walking home with Mark, the bullies lurked nearby, ready to unleash their venom. "What's up, freak?" Jamie shouted, his voice slicing through the camaraderie like a knife. But this time Jake stood resolute, his heart pounding in his chest yet unfaltering. He felt the warm presence of Mark beside him, bolstering his courage. "I'm not scared of you, Jamie," Jake declared, voice steady, echoing the strength he had discovered within himself. "You should be," Jamie barked back, but the uncertainty in his tone was detectable, crumbling under the weight of Jake's defiance. "Leave him alone," Mark interjected, his demeanor fierce yet calm, standing between the bullies and the boys they thought they could intimidate. "You're wasting your breath. This is not going to work anymore." This wasn't just about Jake anymore. This was a movement they were all a part of, full of love, compassion, and support. "Stop trying to act tough," Jamie snapped. But Mark and Jake didn't flinch. They stood their ground, a vibrant testament to resilience. At that moment, it was Jamie's sneer that displayed uncertainty as he slowly backed away, and with a final scoff he retreated with his friends. "Wow, that was awesome," Jake exclaimed, eyes wide with disbelief at his own courage. A wave of exhilaration washed over him. "I can't believe I just stood up to him." Emma, watching from a distance, felt tears of pride welling up in her eyes. They were no longer just surviving, they were thriving. They were forging a new reality, one free of the burdens of shame they once bore, and filled instead with bravery and transformation. The months rolled on, filled with laughter, late-night movie marathons, and the simple joys of family. Their small diner buzzed with warmth as neighbors began to witness their strength. The gossiping whispers faded, replaced by admiration for Emma's resilience and Jake's newfound confidence. One sun-drenched afternoon, as Emma watched Jake and Mark kick a soccer ball back and forth in the yard, a wave of gratitude washed over her. They had built a family built on acceptance, understanding, and love. She felt the tug at her heart, realizing that they were no longer defined by the opinions of others. We did it, didn't we? She thought, a radiant smile spreading across her face. Jake turned toward her, grinning widely. Yeah, we did, Mom. We really did. And in that moment time felt still, as those three united, encapsulated the power of love, vulnerability, and the strength found in each other. They were not just survivors, they were warriors who had become champions in a world that could be brighter, kinder, and more accepting. So, as you step into your own journey, remember, love conquers all. Don't be afraid to be brave, to stand up for yourself and for others. This is your moment. Embrace the courage within you just like Jake, Emma, and Mark. And to all our loyal supporters, you need to subscribe now to join our incredible family. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. Your voice matters and we can't wait to hear from you. This is the moment to show your support.